Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei Reborn as Vampire Prince Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Though support the SUPERBOY19 for writing that awesome fanfic and also make sure to comment on this story, link in description. Let's start this video. Issei, at least that was what his name was, woke up on his bed. His body felt lighter than ever before, but that was thanks to him having been killed the night before. Ugh, he groaned as he lifted himself up. He took a few minutes to regain his consciousness fully before getting up, walking into the bathroom, where he decided to take a shower. Looks like my punishment is up, he said as he ran his hands over his body. Back to the real me, he declared as he looked into a small mirror that was beside the shower. He saw his unruly light silver hair and pale blue eyes looking back at him. His body had also changed. He was slightly taller, his body was in a much better condition. Weird that I seem to have been de-aged to my teenage years, he said. I have to say, being a human for a few hundred years wasn't as bad as I had thought. It is a shame that my house is almost extinct. Besides that ambitious child that seeks the release of that monster, perhaps I should focus on that before anything else, building up my house. He dried off when he was done washing himself. He decided to continue his human life. It would probably freak out the fallen angel that killed him. She deserved to die or be broken as recompense. He changed into his uniform, but before leaving through the door he changed his mind. School can wait a few days. I'll add to the surprise and in the meantime find out about those strange chess pieces that the Redeed uses. He then changed into ordinary clothes. He put on a low-necked white shirt, a black leather jacket and black trousers. He then put on a belt but left it hanging at an angle. Never know what I might find, he said as he did, accepting the possibility that he might find a weapon or other tools that he might like. A belt was the best way to carry them. The belt he used was white. XXXXXXX. Lucifer landed in Romania only a few hours later. He walked around for a while before finding what he was looking for. Things had changed, so he was a bit put off when he first landed, but he found the mansion that he was looking for at the edge of a town, distanced from the other buildings by several miles. He pushed open the gate and listened, focusing his hearing. Looks like not all of my powers are back just yet, shame, he remarked as he ventured inside the grounds. There were 4 men that wore black suits that were by the door and took notice as he approached. Stop. They commanded. He ignored them. After all, their kind would make a good test for his current level of strength, at least if they were capable. Fine then, die. They rushed him, 2 from the front, and the other 2 split up to attack either side of him. They moved. It was too bad for them that they were far too weak. Lucifer caught the wrist of the one to his left and swung him across to block the front 2, firing a bolt of demonic energy at the other that was to his right. I'm looking for Akasha Bloodriver. He asked them. What? He then picked one of them up. I swear I have no idea who you're talking about. The one panicked. He let out a sigh and looked to the others, 2 of whom seemed to be confused, but the third was biting his lip. You know who I'm talking about, and don't bother lying. Devils wrote the book on it. He smiled. She used to be the wife to the head of the family. She died a long time ago, during the Great War. Her absence is part of the reason we're in this stupid war, that in the Karnsteins want to kill the Longinus wielder that the Teeps clan possesses. Longinus? That was the name of the soldier that killed Jesus, was it not? You don't know what they are? The vampire was clearly shocked. I have been away, for lack of a better term. What is this Longinus? He asked. They are weapons, sacred gears that are capable of destroying the world and killing gods. The vampire began. There are 13 original weapons, but there are 5 new ones that have begun to be considered on the same level. The wielders of the weapons can grow to be incredibly powerful, which is why the Teeps clan having one is bad news for the other vampire clans. What if I were to desire this wielder? You'd have to take on an army of vampires just to get her. I know you're strong, but you can't do that alone. I once battled God, fighting some vampires will be no problem. Now where is this wielder? He demanded. The vampire told him. Lucifer set off to get the Longinus wielder. Who are you? A deep voice asked as he was flying. The owner of this body. You are the foreign entity. He looked into his mind as he continued to fly. He found himself in a large space that was covered in flames. He didn't like them, so he extinguished them and turned the landscape into a marble arena. So, who are you? The large red dragon before him snarled at the man. Ah, now I remember you, that dragon that loved to fight. Ha. Why are you in my body? Wait, no way, you were put inside a sacred gear, right? That means I somehow became your host while I was still human. He started to laugh at the giant dragon. Lucifer. The dragon roared angrily. Lucifer didn't stop. Why haven't you escaped? The spell is easy enough to break if you know how. Lucifer asked. The dragon stayed silent for a moment. I cannot, it has to be released from the outside. That means you need someone crazy enough to let a rampaging heavenly dragon loose, which is the least likely thing to ever happen. He could barely hold his laughs in. Tell you what, dragon. I'm sure you know a lot about this world with the hosts you've had over the years. I need your knowledge, and then we can think of a deal that works to both of our advantages, and I will release you from your prison. XXXXXXX. Interesting. So, there was a war that resulted in the original families being replaced, but from what you've told me that isn't a bad thing. I remember those children that no doubt took our place. Each one believed that pure-blooded families should never stoop to mix with others, least of all the 4 families. Tell me, Drake, do you know where any other Longinuses are? No idea, they are sealed within wielders, which means they could be anywhere. Why? They interest me. I would very much like one of these peerages as you put it, and then I want to get each of the Longinuses and give them to my servants. I think that should redeem my house. Lucifer told him as he flew to his desired destination. Drake then continued to tell him about the world. I think I need a way to hide my identity when I steal this wielder. What can you do about that? He asked the dragon. You can use my balance breaker. The armor will hide your identity. Lucifer found it to be a good idea and activated the power that Drake gave him. Welsh Dragon over Booster. The voicer Drake declared as Lucifer was covered in the armor. Finding the Longinus didn't take too long once he had fired several powerful magical attacks on the buildings that the vampires controlled. He watched where the most powerful of them gathered, a predictable move to guard their asset. But they just told him where it was, so he crashed into the room and looked around. He was stunned though when it was a beautiful young girl that he was faced with. She had short blonde hair and red eyes like most vampires, and looked as though she was blessed with the beauty of both vampires and humans, which he could smell on her, meaning that there was a new race of vampire that he had to find out about. More than anything else she looked frightened, and there was a pain in his eyes that he recognized from the war. The pain of someone who had lost everything and was forced to use their power against their will for the benefit of others. He deactivated the armor and created a barrier around the room with a flick of his hand. No one can hear us or get inside. You can speak freely, he said as he walked over to the bed she was sitting on. She seemed to flinch when he got closer. It's okay, he used some of his magic to make his voice sound more soothing. Whatever they have made you done doesn't matter to me, I'm not even a vampire. He told her honestly. I came here because I just woke up after a long nap, well, a nap of sorts. I found out that there was a powerful weapon here, that's what I came for, but I see now that you have no interest in using this power, whatever it is, so I won't ask. He gave her a moment, staying silent so that she could try and process everything, and so that she could lower her guard. When she did, he spoke again. My name is Lucifer, I am the first devil. What is? He stopped when he noticed the fear that his name induced. Have you ever met someone called Rizavam? He asked. She nodded, still afraid. Alright, Rizavam is a very arrogant and misinformed child, he is nothing like me. I'm sure you know about the devil family, she nodded. Good. I am the Lucifer that turned from God. That ignorant old bastard couldn't see humanity for what it was, but I am not the man, nor am I connected to the man you are afraid of. He gave her another pause. He was patient, so he had no problem doing so. Tell me, what is your name? Be Valerie Teep, she said. He could hear the lack of emotion or enthusiasm in her voice. They began to talk about meaningless things. He wanted her to trust him, so he didn't mind. They spoke about her childhood friend Gaspar Vladi and how she helped him escape, and everything that the man named Rizavam had wanted her to do, as well as what her own people wanted to do. Lucifer hugged. A warm hug, like nothing she had felt in a long time. I have an offer to make you, 100% your choice, and I will respect whatever it is. She gave a noise that showed she agreed, and he continued. I am willing to take you away from this place. Whether you agree to my offer will not affect that decision. I once had a daughter of my own when I looked older than this, obviously, but perhaps that is why I am going to make them all pay for this. Lucifer thought about how he was feeling. Perhaps that old man made me serve hundreds of years as a human to learn what it felt like to be one, to be weak, and maybe to teach me how to feel again. Maybe, he thought, privately from the dragon. Come with me, be mine, and in return I will keep you safe forever. No one will ever be able to control you like this again, and if they try they will face me. He told her, offered her. I will if you will help me look for my friend. She revealed her one condition. Lucifer held out his hand and she took it. The barrier lowered, a massive explosion destroyed everything around them. Lucifer had returned with Valerie. He had shown her to the spare room and used his hypnotic suggestion on his parents to make them accept the new girl living in his house. He knew that she would need time to really recover, but while she did that he couldn't sit around. He needed to get more people if he was to return to his old position, and as far as he could tell the Lucifuge were all gone, and if there were any others they had no idea he was alive. Now you have what you wanted, can we talk? Ah, I completely forgot that you were inside me, you were so quiet. Lucifer was surprised to hear the voice, a genuine surprise. I thought it best I leave you to your mission. Seems fair. Now about that deal. I'll let you out, and in return you serve me, much like the Dragon King Tannen. You can act on your own, as long as it doesn't ruin my own plans. And what are your plans? Before I was cursed to becoming a human until whatever conditions were met there was a threat greater than any faction. Equal in strength to Great Red. Trihixer 666. The apocalyptic beast. It doesn't matter what side you're on, that thing will destroy everyone. All we could do was trap it, sealing it, but even that won't hold forever. And you want to fight it? Yes, but this time I'll be prepared for it, not like last time. We'll prepare enough people with the power to stop it, you me and the Longinus wielders are a start. Luckfear explained further. So, do you agree? Alright, it sounds interesting, besides you're the strongest devil to ever live. Serving you is not as bad as being stuck in that thing, but I'll only serve you until that thing is dead. Fair enough. He then made the preparations. A barrier was erected around the house that prevented all supernatural besides Valerie and him from entering and leaving. He drew several symbols around the room and channeled all the magic he had into them, making them all glow. I thought you said this was simple. Yeah, I did, but it still takes a long time and you need the magic reserves to last. Lucifer explained. Sure enough, the process took a long time. He had to sit perfectly still while her performed it and took no breaks. Valerie checked in a few times and just sat there watching by his side. After a while, she was there to lend support without saying anything. XXXXXXX. Wake up or I'll. Lucifer smashed the alarm before it could say anything else. Fucking alarm, he said with a deeper voice than usual, hoarse, his body sore. Crap, what happened? He asked himself. You passed out after you were done. Valerie informed him. She was sitting on the bed with her feet up, she was holding his hand, the one that hadn't crushed the alarm. I left everything as it was. That has been glowing for a while now. She pointed to the gauntlet that lay on the ground, pulsating with a red light that was like a heartbeat, because it was one. Thank you. Lucifer kissed her forehead, eliciting a slight blush that was almost unnoticeable. He walked over to the gauntlet and picked it up. I know you can hear me. Your gauntlet is easy to break now, I just need to take you somewhere that I can release you. Speed up your heart rate if you can shift into human form. The heart rate increased for a moment. Good, then you'll be able to return after. I probably should have asked you first. Prepare to be free, Welsh Dragon Drake. The Red Dragon Emperor, returning to your full glory. Do you want to come with me? He asked the blonde half-vampire. She gave a nod and he held out his hand, which she took. He pulled her close. By the way, how long was I doing all that? Ritual, 3 days. Passed out, 2 days. She said. He looked shocked. I'm still not back at full then. Then the magic circle with his crest appeared beneath him and they were teleported. Reappearing in the familiar forest, Lucifer took the chance to stretch before tossing the gauntlet into the air. Firing a magic spell at it, the gauntlet expelled a massive amount of red light. Lucifer watched, Valerie hiding behind his back, as the light stretched into the shape of a large dragon, western, with red scales and green eyes. Whoa. Valerie looked in awe at the massive beast as it let out a roar. As impressive as I remember. Now don't forget our deal. Lucifer called up to the dragon. I won't. Drake puffed out his chest and stretched out his wings with another roar that shook the whole forest. I always keep my word. Why don't you take a few minutes before taking on your human form? I'm sure it will be constricting. Lucifer said, but Drake shifted into a human form, appearing in his teens, the same age that Haidu was, and Lucifer appeared. He had wild red hair that looked almost like a mane and had emerald eyes, a vibrant, almost glowing, green. In human form I feel almost the same freedom. It was being stuck in an ethereal form that bothered me, never able to move at all or use my true power. He explained. I thought this would suit our group better. He explained his young form. Hey, I don't mind how you appear as long as you fight by my side. Man, Albion is gonna freak out when he meets you now. Lucifer laughed. Drake joined in with a chuckle. Well, you are here, you might as well find a familiar, same for the vampire girl. Drake mentioned. Now you have this form, you should get one too. Lucifer mentioned. But we should split up to find our own, see what we connect with best, he suggested. The other two nodded and they separated. XXXXXXX. Nothing. Lucifer found nothing that he liked, but he wasn't the only one. Drake returned the same. Maybe our standards were too high. Lucifer suggested as they sat there and waited for Valerie to return. Maybe, with your plan though we can't have anything but the best. After all of this, Trihixa is as strong as you say, then weak familiars wouldn't last long or be of any help. Drake added. They both sat on the branch of a tree, or at least Lucifer did. Drake couldn't sit still, so he was constantly moving. He even did a mini workout while they waited, although it was difficult to blame him. Even now Lucifer was itching to get back to his full power and use all of it, and he was still able to move in his version of a prison. Drake was forced to die over and over and couldn't do anything about it, the same repetition happening with every wielder, all of them succumbing to the power. How strong are you now, by the way? Lucifer asked. I don't have much of my magic yet, but I could beat most low and mid-class devils with just this body, Drake admitted. It will take a while to recover all of my power after being in that thing for so long, he told. Speaking of, do you still have it? What? The gauntlet? Drake asked, stopping and looking at Lucifer with confusion. Why do you need it? I don't need it, but the gauntlet could still be a sacred gear of some description. Lucifer told him. Drake raised an eyebrow and summoned the gauntlet, but it looked different to before. It lacked the dragon-like plated fingers and didn't travel as far up his arm as it should. Try using it, he instructed. Drake obeyed, and the green gem glowed with power as he felt a sudden surge of energy. Now try again, and so he did, but nothing happened. It is just a twice critical, Drake said, answering the look on the face of Lucifer. What does that mean? Lucifer asked. The type of sacred gear that doubles the wielder's power for a specific amount of time. It might be a large help for everything, but it could prove useful in this form at least. Drake admitted. When I regain my power though, we can remove it and you can start a collection or something. A collection? That actually doesn't sound like a bad idea. One of each type should give me plenty to do in my spare time if I ever get any. He let out a sigh. Looks like she's coming back. Lucifer looked into the air. Is she on a griffin? Looks like it. Drake answered. XXXXXXX. Lucifer decided that it was time to talk to Valerie. Drake was sitting in the living room when he descended the steps to her room. He knocked 3 times, softly, not wanting to scare her. Her voice was soft when she beckoned him inside. He could see on her face red marks. She had been crying. Are you alright? He asked as he sat on the ground, his back to the bed, sitting closely beside her. No, she said. He took her hand in his and didn't say anything for a while, letting her cry into his shoulder. With his other hand he stroked her head to soothe her as best he could. You know, in my past lives I spent time building a harem. I wanted to be able to indulge in pleasure whenever I wanted, but then one day I met a woman named Lilith. To say I made a fool of myself trying to impress her would be an understatement, but eventually her heart belonged to me. She divorced Adam and married me, but during the war with God she was among those killed just before I died. That pain was more than I ever thought I could bear, but look, he smiled at her, changing from the depressed expression he had worn before. Opening up wasn't like him, but for some reason he was. The only thing he could blame it on was his time spent as a human. I recovered from that and learned to live my life. All pain will eventually fade, no matter how profound. It will have an impact on you. Sure, he placed his hand on her cheek. But in the end it will only make you stronger. Thank you, she mumbled through her still falling tears. They had let up and were almost gone when the pain in his eyes when he spoke of his wife brought them back. About an hour later Valerie had calmed down considerably. Lucifer Sama. Yes. Do you want to make a harem again? She asked. At this point I have to. While I was away my family has become almost extinct, and the only member that remains is, well, he is now on the opposite side. Building a harem would be the quickest way to bring my family from the ashes. She smiled. What is it? He raised his brow. Can I be in your harem? She asked with a lot of hesitation, tripping over her words and jumping between her normal voice and a quiet one. Lucifer lifted her from her seat, earning a surprised gasp from her, and put her on his lap, facing him with a leg either side of him. You already are, he told her. She blushed slightly before he pushed his lips to hers. She was filled with a warm feeling. It definitely wasn't love, that would be too quick, but it was definitely the beginnings of the emotion she had read so much about. Weight on his chest. When he opened his eyes, he saw that it was Valerie, sleeping soundly while her cheek rested on his muscular chest. She looked very cute like that. Her breath gentle but felt slightly tickling as it caressed his skin. She had clearly snuck in during the night at some point. It was good though, and he liked the idea that she was fine with being a member of his future harem. He had feared that she would be against it, which have been one more thing to add to his list of problems, although it was somewhat disappointing that she was wearing clothes. He ran his fingers through her soft golden hair and waited for her to wake up. Morning beautiful, she blushed at his compliment. He then gave her a quick kiss before getting up and dressed. She watched with a blush as she saw him change. Are you feeling better today? He asked as he selected the same outfit he had worn the other day. Well, it was similar. There were some differences in the finer details, like the logo on the shirt and the golden belt buckle. But she answered, wiping her eye as she was still waking up. You seem better too. There is more emotion in your voice when you talk. I'm glad. He smiled before fixing his hair with magic. Do you plan on doing anything today? What is there to do? Well, you could enroll in the school. Of course you would have to fill out the paperwork first, but that shouldn't be a problem. You could go shopping or find friends. There are lots of things you can do. You could even watch a movie. I doubt you've seen many of those. They kissed one more time before he left. Meeting Drake in the kitchen so that they could plan out their next move. The key to pulling this off is to expand my numbers. To do that I need evil pieces. Lucifer said from his seat, the kitchen counter. Beelzebub has them, he makes all of them. Good to know their Beelzebub is a genius too. I wonder if anyone with that name has super intelligence, he thought as he remembered his comrade fondly. Taking it by force would be the easiest way to do things, but we aren't ready to reveal ourselves just yet. Then how do you expect to do it? There is no way you can fake being another pure-blooded devil from a different family. Their unique abilities make sure of that. Drake argued. Abilities? Lucifer questioned. Every family has a specialty of magic or talent that no other house has. For the Belial that power is the worthlessness power, and for the Baal it is the power of destruction. Each family has their own, which makes them impossible to impersonate. You mean this? In his hand blue and black energy gathered in an orb. It was different. Stronger for sure. And the color was different, but Drake could tell Lucifer was wielding the power of destruction. Noting the dragon's surprise, he continued. I am the father of all devils, there isn't an ability that they have that I don't. And now I know how I'm going to do it. You mentioned that the 72 pillars had virtually been wiped out, only some of the houses returning to power. I'll pick one of the dead families and use their ability to gain standing as a devil, that way I can get a set of pieces and we can have greater access to information. There is also the raiding games. The what and the who now? He asked. They are battles with where peerage is pitted against peerage. As a teen you will be able to take part in the young devil thing they do every now and then, a good place to recruit possible harem members. That sounds like fun, but doing that puts a deadline on when I need a peerage by. I can't fight with no one, and doing it myself risks me using another of the powers in the midst of battle. I have the bad habit of losing myself, and one slip-up could reveal who I am. So, who are you planning on being? Drake asked. Not sure, but I have no idea which of the houses are extinct, and I don't suppose you know either. I haven't been to the underworld in almost 50 years, my information might be a bit off. Drake admitted with a shrug. Lucifer hummed as he thought for a moment. The ones that I know for sure are still alive are Baal, Sitri, Belial, Gremory, Agares, Astaroth and Phoenix. Drake gave him more information that might help with whatever decision he was making. XXXXXXX. Valerie had gone to school, leaving them to rummage through the papers that were stored in the old school building that was used for some club known as the Occult Research Club. Drake was sifting through files on one side of the room, careful to put everything back as it was, while Lucifer did the same on the other side of the room. They had all the time in the world. Ria's Gremory and her peerage were all in classes for the next few hours, giving them plenty of time to commit everything they read to memory. Valifer, Lucifer said. Drake turned to look at him. What? He asked, not sure he had heard him correctly, which he hadn't. All he had heard was Val, which gave him no clue as to what the devil was talking about. The Valifer family are extinct. I remember one of them during the final battle I took part in for the life of me. I can't remember his name or his power for that matter, but I remember that he was strong. I could become his descendant. He was committed to following me, so I doubt that he would mind using his name. How can you impersonate them without their ability? Drake questioned, a good question. It stands to reason if they were wiped out there would be no one to teach the sole remaining child. A great enough show of demonic power should be enough to convince them, as long as it is different from my own power. And how do you change your own power? It's magic, I'll simply will it to change. Lucifer stated as though the answer should have been obvious. I think I will call myself Draco Valifer, he said thoughtfully, proud of himself for coming up with one that he liked so quickly. From that moment they had a plan that was now realistic. With it they could gain a foothold into reclaiming power. He just needed an opportunity to reveal himself in a suitable setting, and thankfully, one became obvious very quickly. Not a day later they felt the presence of another devil arriving. Probably teleporting in, and when they looked to the orc's window they saw a flash of orange. Who is that I wonder, Lucifer said as he watched. Like any self-respecting devil he did the honorable thing and eavesdropped on the meeting that was taking place. Drake had no interest, but he came anyway, but he didn't stand close enough to listen, instead he stood with Valerie. Cut it out, Riser. As I said before, I will not marry you. Came the voice of Ria's Gremory. Thanks to her raised volume and heated state it was easy to hear her. She was obviously trying to make something clear to someone, so she was speaking more slowly as to have more of an effect. Then he heard a male voice. It wasn't as loud, so he couldn't hear any words, but the tone of voice alone made him slightly mad. When he felt the time was right he opened the door. Yo. He waved. Everyone snapped to look at him, they were very confused to say the least. Ah. He raised his hands as Riaz went to speak. I need to introduce myself first. It's only polite. He knew that wasn't what she was going to do, but he gave a smile and introduced himself formally. My name is Draco Valifer, it's a pleasure to meet you. He bowed slightly. They all looked at him in shock. Whatever argument they were having was put on hold for the moment, although the tension was so thick that it was almost visible. Valifer. Riaz muttered. Riaz, is this another one of your tricks to escape your fate? Riser is not impressed. The blonde man said. Do all other devils speak in third person or is that just you? Lucifer asked, taking on a tone of genuine curiosity. Drake and Valerie entered and stood either side of him, but they said nothing. Right, so I have no idea what to do now. I was just told by the man that raised me that if I were to meet another devil I should introduce myself. What man? Riaz asked. A human, although he did know an awful lot about magic. Told me who I was and what that meant. He continued, giving a rather convincing lie. Even the gray-haired woman seemed to be buying it, having said that he was the best liar. Came with the territory of being the devil. It still took him a while to convince them though, maybe 15 minutes. By the end of it, Grafia teleported him away. That was the gray-haired lady dressed as a maid. Turns out she was a maid, and considering she demanded respect from the other two with just a glance, he knew she was strong. Drake and Valerie were taken with him. She, Grafia, had probably made the correct assumption that they were his peerage. Of course, without the evil pieces it wasn't official. Hopefully wherever they were going would change that, and if not, with Drake he should be able to take them by force. After all, there was no plan if it failed. Wait here, Grafia instructed as she entered a room. Everything around them was grand looking. Clearly, they were inside a mansion. You sure about this? Valerie asked. She was the most visibly nervous. Drake showed a light sign in his eyes, but Lucifer saw none. This is the only way we could think to do this. As long as they believe us, we should be fine. Lucifer assured her, putting his hand on her shoulder and giving it an affectionate squeeze. She smiled, but he could still see she was on edge. Who could blame her though? She had gone from being a captive to being his lover sort of, and now they were in some mansion for a big shot no doubt, and were possibly going to have to fight for their lives if things went wrong. When the door reopened, they were invited inside, which was when they saw a young-looking man, older than them, with long red hair. A more masculine-looking Riaz with a much smaller chest was the description that came to Lucifer's mind. Draco Valifer, I presume, the man said, his tone one that a powerful ruler would use. It was both accepting and commanding at the same time. My head maid tells me that you are the last member of the Valifer family, is that true? He asked. That's right, Lucifer responded. Wait, did you say last? He acted surprised. Didn't you know? The man asked, his maid now beside him. No, well, sort of. The man who raised me told me that I was, but I guess I just didn't want it to be true. I guess I was holding out some hope that I wasn't the last, and I might have some family that he just didn't know about. He looked disappointed as he spoke. What do you know of our kind? He asked. Well, I know there was a great war, 72 pillars, most died in civil war, struggle for power, and a list of names which would be a waste to list all 72, because I'm sure you know them. I also know how your society works, including the class system. Not too sure about the chess stingies though. The old man didn't know enough about them to tell me. Lucifer admitted. The man seemed to contemplate everything. It almost looked like he had been given a heavy burden. There was a long pause. Is this what it feels like to them when I'm thinking? Because this is annoying as hell. He internally screamed. Lucifer, going by the name Draco Valifer, Drake, in his human form, and Valerie were waiting for the decision of Surziches, the false Lucifer. Lucifer was beginning to become impatient, but he couldn't snap, or he might jeopardize everything that had happened thus far. Surziches sat and seemed to scan the three before him. If he isn't who he claims to be, then it will cause problems. However, if he is, then it would be better to gain his trust. I might need him later. He could be used for that. Surziches thought over everything while he looked at him. Draco Valifer, I will speak with the other Satans on your behalf. However, in return I want to ask you a favor. And what might that be? Draco asked, but seconds later he understood what Surziches had meant. Surziches didn't intend to tell him what it was that he wanted. He wanted a favor for anything that he could use whenever he desired it. It would be a problem, but he could always reject it later. After all, he would be giving his word that he would give him a favor as Draco Valifer. That wouldn't include Lucifer. He laughed internally. Alright, Draco Valifer, promise that I will grant you a single favor in the future, whatever it may be. However, I will not become your servant, give you my servants, nor harm or kill my servants at your command. You might be a Satan, but I would never do that for anyone. Surziches could see the fire behind his eyes, the passion when he said it, but he needed none of the taboo things from him, so he agreed. Very well, I'll call a meeting and speak with the others. I must ask you to remain here until then. Surziches stated as he rose from his seat. My maid, Grafia Lucifuge, will tend to your needs while you wait. She gave a slight bow in recognition of his order. She then escorted them to a waiting room. She left not long after Ad brought them back a tray which had a plate of biscuits and 3 cups of coffee, as well as a pot with more in it. She stayed standing while Valerie took a seat on the sofa after taking up a book and starting to read. Drake and Lucifer sat 2 opposite sofas, Lucifer on the same one that Valerie was sitting in, while they played chess. So, tell me, beautiful. Lucifer didn't look up from the chessboard, but it was clear that he was talking to Grafia. She looked at him, but her expression showed no emotion. Your last name was Lucifuge, correct? Yes. She replied with an apathetic tone. Then why are you serving a Grimoire? Wouldn't you rather be serving an actual Lucifer? Lucifer asked with a slight glint in his eye. There are none left. She answered without hesitation. What about the son of the original? I heard he was still alive. Why aren't you with him? He looked up slightly to look into her eyes, but moving his head very little. Or did you serve him and left? If that was the case, why would you do that? Drake started to look between the two. Unlike Lucifer, he knew the story and knew that Graphia might attack should she lose her temper. My allegiance is none of your concern. Aw, so cold. I'm so scared, he faked fear. Then can I ask you what would happen should another Lucifer emerge, one that is more suited to you? Would you continue to serve Serzich's Gremory or would you go back to the ways of your family? Before she could answer, he held up his hand to stop her from talking. Don't bother answering. I'm new to all of this stuff, I don't actually care, but maybe it is something you should consider for yourself. He then went back to his game of chess, leaving her to consider what he had said. Whether or not she actually did think about it he didn't know, but she wasn't a focus at the moment, although he was sure that she would become one later. After all, she was both strong and hot, what wasn't to like about her, other than her lack of showing emotions? 3 games of chess later Serzich's returned. Drake won the first match, but both of the following were Lucifer's victories. You need some serious practice at that, Lucifer laughed. Drake almost snarled at him, he stopped when he felt Serzich's enter the room. Breako Valifer, he started. With the authority of the 4 great Satans, I, Serzich's Lucifer, grant you the titles and holdings that came with the title as head of your clan. And after that some hours of paperwork had to be filled out before he was able to get a set of evil pieces. XXXXXXX. When Lucifer, Draco, arrived at the mansion of the Valifer family, they found that there were many members of staff waiting there. They swore loyalty and then resumed their duties. They all had to swear a magically binding oath to give their loyalty to him. You might want to go to the library, see if you can find a grimoire that can tell you what the family's power is. Drake suggested. It would be better to learn sooner so that you can rely on that rather than your other powers. Not a bad idea, Lucifer acknowledged. Take care of things while I search. He waved as he went in search of the library. But just Drake and Valerie, there was a very awkward silence that followed. They had actually never spent any time alone with one another. Drake could even tell that she was afraid of him, which to be fair wasn't that surprising. As a vampire, she was no doubt well versed in the histories of the world and would know what he could do. Aya Drake? She asked. You don't have to call me that. Drake cut her off, despite knowing it would possibly put her off. Alright, sorry, can you teach me magic? She asked. Drake raised an eyebrow. She was a vampire, which meant she no doubt had more physical strength than magic, based on everything that he has seen of her so far, which wasn't much. All vampires were a lot stronger and faster than humans, they could learn magic, but most concentrated on physical power, only the very best did both to a strong level. Valerie had been sheltered for her power, so as she was only experienced as a wielder of her sacred gear, and her physical abilities were probably at the basic level for one of her kind, the level that one has without training. At least that was his best guess. Why do you want to get stronger? He asked. I want to be able to help Lucifer. I want to help him get everything that he has lost. She said with conviction. Drake considered saying no, but truth be told it would be problematic if she couldn't pull her weight and she couldn't rely on just her sacred gear as it wasn't really built for combat. Fine, he said like it was difficult to say. She gave an appreciative smile. Thank you. You. Turning to a servant, is there somewhere that we can train? Drake asked one of the servants as they were passing. Of course, please follow me, master. He bowed his head and took them both to an underground room. Once inside, the lights turned on, torches that lined the wall, bathing the room in a warm light. Drake waved his hand and increased the intensity of the flames so that it was brighter and they could see better. Is that all you require? Yeah, you can go and do whatever now. Drake waved them off. They did as instructed, resumed their normal duties, leaving the door open. Drake took up a position and Valerie stood opposite. What do you know about magic? He asked. Well, I don't know anything. I was never able to practice it. She admitted. XXXXXXX. Lucifer had been in the library for an hour. There were 3 servants helping him, each of them searching for the same thing. He thought that it would mean that he could find the right one fast enough, but it was still taking a while, and he was getting bored. He still had to find servants. Holding out his hand, his fingers stretched, he summoned his pieces onto the table, lined up as if ready for a game of chess. He picked up a pawn piece. I will only need one of these for Valerie, she isn't that strong, but if trained right she could be. I should try and fill as much spaces as I can before the raiding whatever pawns would be easiest, but I need to make sure they can win. The less power I have to use, the less likely it is that I will lengthen my recovery time or be exposed before I'm ready. He thought aloud. He didn't have to worry about the servants telling on him due to the oath they had sworn to serve him. The dragon might be a good option, they are born with a lot of power, the only problem would be convincing them to serve me. He put the pawn piece that he was holding back on the table. If only Lilith was by my side, she always knew what was best, he thought solemnly. He closed his eyes and rested his forehead against his hands, elbows on the table to support him. Images of his wife flashing before him for quite some time. Lucifer was used to feeling for her, but even so, it was like someone had amped his emotions. Maybe a side effect of being a human for so long, maybe that was why he was allowed back to his true form. The old man was always mysterious. Picking a dragon has more merits as well. After all, Drake would be able to train a dragon more easily than any other species. He thought when his mind had been removed from past images of his wife. Mind telling me who the strongest dragons are? He asked the servants, his voice slightly louder so that they could hear him. Of course, that would be the Dragon Kings. You mean Tannen, Yulong, Britra, Midgardsormr, Fafnir and Fafnir. I feel like I'm forgetting one of them. Tiamat, no one knows where she is though. And what about the others? He said, kicking out the chair opposite him and gesturing for her to take a seat. She sat down and continued. Well, Tannen is the queen of Mephistopheles and lives in a massive territory with a large number of dragons. The others are like Tiamat, you'd have to ask someone else where they were. There are rumors though. Such as, well, apparently Vritra is in the sacred gear and Tiamat is living in the familiar forest. She informed him. Well, if Vritra is in the sacred gear then that is too bad. I will need a familiar at some point, so I'll try and find her when I go there. Lucifer thought aloud with a finger on his chin. Are there any other strong dragons? He asked. At the point he is at, getting a Dragon King would pose too much effort. Freeing Vritra would cause some suspicion, and he would also have to hunt for the wielder and remove it, which could take years if they were unaware of the sacred gear themselves. Another dragon, a young one, would be better because they would be less prideful about their freedom, and he would be able to train them to fit the diversity of his group much better. Alright, well there are Tannen's children, I think there are 3 of them. She told him. But he has several different types of dragons living with him, I think they include flame and blizzard dragons mostly. She added. That all seems like I need to do some research on that, but in getting a dragon is a definite must for my goal. Lucifer stated. You can go now. She bowed her head and resumed the search. Getting out of his seat and stretching, he resumed the search. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support the SUPERBOY19 for writing that awesome fanfic and also make sure to comment on this story. See you in the next video. Goodbye.